and gentlemen, welcome to the Center of Tenerife Centers of Brazil, CICB. We are the entity that represents the Tenerife of Brazil in Brazil and overseas, and we're very proud to welcome you at the CICB Sustainability Forum. The main topic of this session will be the links to traceability. This event is being brought to you by the Brazilian Leather Project, an initiative of CICB in partnership with the Brazilian Agency of Promotion of Exports and Investments, Apex Brazil, for the growth of cowhide of Brazil in the external market. We'd like to thank FENAC, Experiências Conectam, which is organizing the 47th FIMEC. Our gold sponsors, IDH, Minerva Leather, and Bramec with BKS, Master, NVN, and Michelon. Silver sponsors, Midori Auto Leather, Syncurt, and Viposa and Vamporos. This event is being sponsored by Euroamerica. Simultaneous interpreting is being provided to you in Portuguese and English. You can get the radio at the front. All the sessions will be delivered originally in Portuguese by our guests. We're going to have a final panel with questions from the audience. And please ask your questions using the QR code in the brochure you have received. Not all the guests will be there in the final panel. Those who will not be there will receive your questions later, and they'll be able to answer them via email. So don't forget to identify yourself and enter your email address in your message. Let's get it started. We're going to learn a lot this afternoon from Ricardo Andrade, the Technical and Sustainability Advisor of CICB, and he will talk about the cowhide chain, an overview, evolution, and best practices. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank your presence here. I'm very happy to be here this afternoon and share this moment with you guys. This is a very important moment for us. Last year we came here too. Back then, in our presentation, we discussed the paths to traceability and how we looked at those paths from the perspective of the leather industry. This year, by joining forces with CICB as we defined the topics we're going to address this afternoon, we understand that talking about it makes a lot of sense. So we have decided that the best way to do it would be to share experiences with all of you guys and tell you what we have done since the moment we finished that lecture last year, and then we began looking at the things we had to do and how to do it. So, in addition, by joining forces with other actors in the segment, by creating, establishing partnerships that could speed up the traceability process so that we could make a contribution in this journey. I would also like to thank everybody from CICB. Rogério has been tireless in this journey, has been providing the whole support for us and encouraging us to find solutions. Couldn't forget to thank our partners, our colleagues who are here, especially those who have been working on this agenda with us. Fernando, people from CNA, and all the other colleagues as well, João Paulo and Rafael, and people from the Ministry of Agriculture, the Office of Development, Office of Animal Defense. Throughout this year, along with other colleagues, we have had several opportunities to discuss the challenges, opportunities, and solutions, and how we can work together to reach a business model that could address the demands, and most importantly, to value the production of our tannery chain. First of all, I would like to just like last year I showed you some slides, and I'm using the same slides again this year, but the idea is to explore those slides a little further. When we look at it, what does it mean? What does it represent when we look at the industry, the leather industry? When we look at it, we can see only 10% of the leather production is located, for instance, in states that are covered by the Amazon. It's important to mention that because if we look at the sum of all the states, from the center-west and the southeast states and southern states, we have over 80% of the production of our leathers is being produced in those states, especially in the south, where we have which are have more aptitude to it, with several investments and tanneries working with sustainability for a while and traceability for a while as well. As for certifications, last year we looked at I showed this very slide, and I want to show you now what is different is that every day we are encouraging the industry to incorporate methodologies and sustainability systems in their processes, to incorporate new technologies, and we have incorporated new technologies and long-term views with an eye to sustainability. And more specifically, as for the industrial processes, we're trying to take better advantage of the processes with better productivity, with better capacities of wealth generation for every party involved in the chain. So we're providing the necessary support for the companies. If they are not in this journey, well, if they are, we're helping these companies to make things better. With the idea is to deliver their clients a safe and high quality product. As for certifications, it's important to say that the leather and cowhide industries, it's part of the beef industry. When I talk about it, we of course are going to be talking things more broadly, like including the beef industry. As for certifications, Brazil today is unquestionably is one of the largest players in the market, both for beef and leather. Our industry is extremely modern. It's been a while we have been meeting the very rigid standards of quality, sustainability, and every day we've been incorporating new certification systems to support the productive systems. We have certification systems geared towards the animal wellness, some others on the industrial certification, LWG for instance. We have certifications in the automobile industry. We're certified for traceability. As it's very much about how information is transferred. We are certified for social, environmental certifications. Here we have some projects from the Public Prosecutor's Office that is being developed in the state of Pará, and the Green Seal, Selo Verde, public projects that are being developed with the goal of social, environmentally monitor our chain. And our companies, most of them, because they're very big at exports, As you can see, CICB comprises of as many as 60 companies, and we are responsible for over 60% of exports from Brazil. So when we're going to be looking at the chain specifically, but of course I'm going to be representing all these companies, and as I mentioned earlier, these companies follow very high and elevated standards as for certifications, process certifications. So we're ISO 9000 certified. We have been certified from environmental perspectives and social perspectives. And when we look at the leather industry from an environmental perspective, we're certified by LWG, which does a lot of stuff to look at the productive chain. So we're very different from now. We're very different in terms of certification. As for the challenges, I'd like to mention some much more than... the idea is to understand the vast majority of challenges here, such as the maintenance of new markets, deforestation of the Amazon and Cerrado biomes, the greenhouse gas emissions, traceability of indirect suppliers, and social environmental monitoring, as well as animal wellness. These are some of the challenges for the tannery chains. And it's important to highlight that out of these challenges, the only one that is our responsibility is the maintenance of new markets. For all the others, we need to have a better integration with the chain so that we can appropriate ourselves from the value of these challenges. For instance, when we talk about deforestation, we mean like having a responsible production that will allow our clients to receive safe products, not involved with deforestation. When we talk about the traceability of the indirect supplier, we mean increasing the visibility of our suppliers that we have now in an effort to deliver to our clients a safe product. When we talk about social environmental monitoring, we talk about the production not only inside the industry but also the production in the field as a whole, including the animals that are produced there and will reach the tannery. We're going to be looking at the conditions of these animals. Do those farms respect the minimum criteria we believe are essential to ensure a socially correct product, a safe product, and of course a high quality product. And as for animal wellness, of course, as for leather, simple actions just like the actions that are being carried out in Sao Paulo, like discontinuing vaccination from the animals, which helps us to avoid several damages to the animal and can increase their conditions, and of course eliminating fire marking. As you know, like when we migrate into an individual marking system, we can trace and identify the animals more easily.
Now let's talk about social environmental control of suppliers. So here we have listed a few criteria that we consider to be relevant when we look at our chain, when we purchase from our supplier, the slaughterhouse. They also look to their group of suppliers who are the producers. So we're going to look at some aspects related to geospatial monitoring and information that we must get from the polygons where this property is located, in what conditions these animals were raised. We'll look if in these properties, in the farms, if we have deforestation, how this deforestation takes place, if it's within the Brazilian regulation, the forestry code, or if that property has some work of renewal of a deforestation area. So we need to understand how this raw material is being being produced for us. Also, indigenous lands and overlapping of areas of indigenous lands, and the issue of monitoring of movement of animals. So it's important to add this point in our monitoring, because not only it's important to know in what farm these animals were raised, but also during the life cycle of this animal. Maybe they could be transported from 5 or 6 properties, if these properties that this animal went through, if they were in compliance with the best practices, best production practices. For that, we use data from CAR, the geospatial data, and also information from the government. Still about social environmental monitoring, we have, I'm going to show solutions that are being developed at the federal government. Our colleague Bruno Leite will be representing us and helping us to present this platform, but we have today a project that was developed at MAPA, the ministry, together with SERPRO and Embrapa, to integrate public data, because today the data that we have, some are at the federal level, others exist at the state level, so it's very important to first integrate this data, and so that they can be offered to the production chain, so we can certify the conditions of the product that we are working on. Generation of certifications with legal compliance. This is also foreseen in this platform. A strategic response to the European Union. We are seeing our government working strongly with this proposal of using the platform as being the official platform of Brazil to respond to the requirements of the European Union legislation, and we understand that this platform has the conditions for this. Also, it's a platform that offers simple access that will be provided for free to the producers, where they can just check to see if the product that they are acquiring is in agreement with the requirements. It's expected to be launched. The phases 1 and 2 of the platform are expected to be launched for June 2024, so we are working together and waiting for this platform to be made available so we can use it in our work. Private solutions, we have a few that we'd like to highlight. We have many, but we are highlighting some of those here. The Boi na Linha program with Imaflora. They monitor the chain in the Amazon biome, especially in the state of Pará, where ABIEC, the Exports Association, they are a signatory of this. We support this project, and we understand that it has a lot of material to deliver in terms of compliance. So we support them, and we believe that this is a path that can be chosen. So we have other private solutions like AgroTools and SMGeo from Nice Planet, Brain from Serasa. They're also offering solutions in the sense that you can provide your CPF number, and it will tell you if that property is in compliance with social and environmental requirements. As an example of the Boi na Linha platform, it has two aspects, both with the TAC and the livestock raising commitments, a conduct adjustment act. So when you look at the deforestation law from December 30, 2024, and we look at some criteria that are essential to comply with this legislation, we can here observe that the mandatory due diligence, it's the set of rules that are required so that we can meet the criteria of the legislation. We have average or medium level of alignment. It means that if today, if tools are approved like PROGES countries, or CARI and others, like GTA, we would have here a level of alignment that is acceptable so that we could export our products to Europe. When we're talking about zero deforestation, we can see that in the case of livestock raising commitment, we have a level of alignment that is very high. So we can, through this model, ensure that our production is free of deforestation. Legal compliance, this involves several aspects, including compliance with the legislation, the forestry code, and other state legislation. We also have a level of alignment that is medium. This means that we are in agreement with the compliance. And then two areas that I think that are significant and that we're able to deliver an important response regard the risk evaluation, risk assessment, and mitigation, reporting, and transparency. In all these requirements, we have a high level of alignment, which means that our monitoring system, in this case of Boi na Linha, is able to deliver those requirements that are fundamental to the European Union to comply with the anti-deforestation laws. Here I want to talk a little bit about the agents of change. So what we are seeing in the last 2 years, of course it started before that, but we have expanded this discussion about especially traceability, and last year more with traceability of indirect producers. But this movement is a one-way movement. It started in Europe, related to social and environmental control and traceability 15 to 20 years ago. Europe is already very advanced in that. Today the main concern in Europe is regarding the social issue and human rights, where Brazil has a very important quality. The labor laws in Brazil are very well regulated, so we have a safe environment to work on these requirements. But we have a few demands that are important. When we talk about the Brazilian market, I think this is one of the most important ones that we have as a challenge and opportunity, is the demand by FEBRABAN that requires information of traceability from the sourcing farms in the legal Amazon and Maranhão states to demonstrate until December of 2025 the non-acquisition of cattle associated to illegal deforestation from direct and indirect suppliers. So this is a very important demand. It's already exists, and we understand that the bank should also participate in this process, since it's not enough to demand from the industry so they don't purchase animals that come from regions where it's not possible to assess risk, but also for the bank to work in the sense of doing the tracing of the financing that is done for the producers that are not working in agreement with what is expected. So it's important that this is a work that is done together, understanding the demands of the financial sector. We believe that we can work together with them, but we also know that this responsibility should be shared. And the anti-deforestation law that forbids the import and trade of products coming from areas of deforestation. And in Brazil we have the forestry code that allows in several regions of Brazil some levels of suppression of vegetation. So in the case of the legislation for deforestation, this is not possible. This is also associated to the use of land and environmental protection, labor laws, rights of indigenous and original peoples, rights of third parties, fiscal regulation, anti-corruption, and customs. So it's not only about deforestation, but it involves several requirements that must be met so we can continue to export to the European Union. Now, specifically about traceability, I always like to highlight this profile, saying that how complex our chain is. When you look at the leather sector, or industry, they are purchasing these animals from the slaughterhouses. So our supplier is the slaughterhouse, and their supplier is the direct supplier who delivers it to them. There's the supplier that delivers to the direct supplier, and our product, which is in the first step step of production, the blue product is sent to the semi-finished and then the finished leather, and then we reach the market where we're going to provide for the shoes, upholstery, and automotive industry. So it's important to highlight that there's strong work to be done for traceability and systems that can capture the information and transmit that to the customers. The majority of these markets are still not ready to do this. And in the same way this happens at the level of production, we also have a big challenge to see our chain since the production at the beginning and to know if it is in compliance. About the traceability system in Brazil, today we have two traceability systems to highlight: the SysBOV, which is done by the individual identification, and GTA, that is done through the transit form. Every time that the animal is moved, some document is generated. The main difference is that SysBOV, in that you have its computerized system in the country, so you have information at the level of the federal level. You can operate with information that come from between states in a very easy way. And when we talk about GTA, it is at the state level. So we are talking about states that have digital systems to issue this document, and there are other states that still are doing this on paper, by hand, or a spreadsheet. So of course the integration of this data is more challenging with the GTA form. About SysBOV, we can say that production in Brazil of beef is concentrated in a group of 1,200 to 1,400 farms, and it requires the animal to be traced 90 days before slaughter, and these are certified and audited farms by the Ministry of Agriculture. In the leather industry, we are still working with 2.5 million producers whose farms don't need to be certified, and we need to deliver compliance of these farms. So it's a big challenge that we are ready to face, but certainly we will need to work together to be successful. It's also important to highlight that none of these systems foresee the social environmental monitoring, so they are only looking for now at the traceability of the animal. So traceability by lot, we have the slaughterhouse that purchases this animal from the direct supplier. This is done every time that this transaction is done. This form is generated, and then you can have a traceability system by looking backwards in your chain, of course with authorization from the producer if you receive that from GTA and CAR, so you can do the monitoring of properties. This can be done both for the direct and indirect supplier. I also highlight the system of cattle raising in Brazil. It's different from other countries where it's more vertical, like in Europe and the United States. In the Brazilian system, we have at least 4 production systems: the fully integrated ones, semi-integrated, and systems that you have a production at every level. You have specialization of production. So this is important to highlight that when we look at the direct supplier today, according to data of the government of the state of Pará, when you look at direct suppliers, the deforestation related to direct suppliers represent 40%. When you look at deforestation in indirect supplier, it represents another 39%. When you look at indirect supplier level 1 with properties under 100 hectares, it represents 12%, and when we're looking at indirect level 2, this represents 80%. What I like to say is that a lot of discussions that we have about indirect monitoring, we focus more in the lowest level of visibility. And if we solve this problem, we think that we're going to solve all the problem of traceability. But I prefer to look at the 92% that we can advance, implementing a system of traceability, a plan of implementation that is more robust, that would be fairer, and that we can advance in this chain regarding the monitoring system. About policies of identification, I also would like to highlight the work done by CNA. It was done a grassroots work, very structured, so we could apply this individual identification system in Brazil. This was approved by the Industry Chamber of Beef, and until now we were not able to proceed with that. But with this proposal, the Ministry of Agriculture created a new proposal using as a base the proposal by CNA, and also with some differences. In the case of the proposal by the Ministry of Agriculture, it would be a mandatory traceability that would be done by region. So we would have several regions, and each region would have some term, some deadline to implement that. And up until now, we had a meeting last year, so it's been a year, and we still were not able to advance in the development of this policy. And finally, the Brazilian Panel of Sustainable Livestock Raising, we also worked in this year to elaborate a proposal that is based on these other two previous proposals, but with a difference, because it presents a transition proposal where we understand that the system of identification, individual identification of animals, is fully safe, that looks at the needs of Brazil for the exportation of beef and leather for the next few years. But if we implement the transition system that was proposed at MBPS, we could use the indirect supplier at level 1 so that we could increase the level of compliance and the level of monitoring of our chain. It's also important to highlight that the state of Santa Catarina has an individual traceability system for more than 17 years, and the state of Pará is going to implement it. These are the platforms of traceability and monitoring of indirect suppliers. So we have several companies, private companies, working with these platforms. Some or each have their own specificities. They can meet some level of compliance, medium, high, or low, depending on the requirements that you want, but they each have helped our industry and our producers to do this transition to a more robust system of traceability. And also I'd like to highlight that in the case of SMGel, and it was developed a traceability program specific that could be applied to the leather industry, and this one allows you to do this transition and have the information of the animal since birth and the first movement until you deliver this product at the tannery.
As for direct supplier monitoring and traceability, we have a slaughterhouse who will monitor our direct supplier. We may have a tannery that will monitor the slaughterhouse if they don't do it. Then the tannery, some associated companies will do it, and actually some of them will check it twice. But this is something that is done directly with the slaughterhouse, and they'll do it with the farmers. And then it goes on and on until they reach the client. This is the identification and labeling and traceability of direct suppliers. They will be identified and labeled either at the tannery or slaughterhouse. This is something that has been working for a while, very specific of Brazil in several states. And so sometimes whenever we have to send organic materials from one state to another, we have a marking system to identify and label the batches that will be transferred and sent from one state to another. This is a reality. It's been a reality for many years. And let's be honest, it's not a challenge for us. There are different marking systems that can be done, but the most important thing to include is what kind of information are we going to state. So we need information from the slaughterhouse tannery and the date. As for monitoring, identification, and traceability of indirect suppliers, we'll take a step further. In addition to monitoring the supplier, we'll also be monitoring the supplier that will supply the other supplier that will provide the slaughterhouse with the products, since from the very beginning of the process and then through the traceability system, industrial traceability system, we can capture that information and hand it to the client. What's important to mention is as for individual identification and labeling, it's important that the information from the animal that may be present either in the earring or the chip, the two technologies that are approved today or certified today, and also we have other tags. Anyway, we have to transfer that information from the animal to the skin of the animal. Some associate companies do it too. They've been offering this product, but it's not a reality in our production system. As CICB people, if we could work with better harmony and standardization, we have been working on the good practices of identification and traceability of leather with the social environmental compliance manual guide. And so this system tells us what kind of information needs to be transferred, needs to be entered onto the system, and how they should be monitored, and how we can be in compliance. It also includes a descriptive memorial of each of the processes that will be instruct readers how to make sure that the information that they get from the animals, a group of animals, how they can be delivered or handed to the client. And also that the manual guide includes a compliance model for provision of services to the European Union, which includes the criteria, specific criteria, and how the traceability process should be carried out at the slaughterhouse or tannery to make sure that our product is deforestation free. This is just a summary, a breakdown of our guide. So it will include our perspective. The idea is to work with the perspective of traceability and monitoring with an eye to encourage the chain to reach a higher level. The idea is that the companies that take part in this process to have an essential system, go from an essential system to a batch system, in which they will select the batches that are compliant and the batches that are not compliant, that will be directed to markets that do not require, and also the advanced level that can be done either individually or through a batch by associating a monitoring level, which will include the information that is necessary and how we can audit that information. This manual guide should be ready by the end of the month in March, and we'll be sending it to our associates voluntarily so that they can join this process. And so this is what I had to say. Thank you so much, and until next time.